the worst thing you can do as a startup, as a deep tech startup like ours, is to go into hibernation, which basically you lose time. In the end, time is what you need.
Hi everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Startup Empathy video series. I'm very excited to make a big announcement that today and for the next 7 episodes, we have partnered up with Seervision, which is a startup based here in Zurich that is working on an AI-powered camera operating system. We have done that to make sure that you get better quality videos during this remote video series sessions. Additionally, as you can imagine, the first guest at Seervision is Nikos, who is the CEO and co-founder of Seervision, and he is going to tell us everything, how he is going through this crisis and what they have been doing to really continue working and growing their startup. I'm really excited to partner with them, and I'm very, very excited for you to have better quality videos. So enjoy this episode and have a great day. So, welcome everybody. Nikos, thank you so much for taking the time today, and I'm very excited because, again, like Seervision and us at globaltechbox.com, we have partnered up to really try to bring a better experience to all the people out there watching our videos and our shows. So Nikos is the CEO and co-founder of Seervision. What they do is an AI-powered camera operating system, and I'm very excited that we can use it. Thank you so much. And I really hope that like some people will come and try it. And we are going to now talk a little bit about like what Seervision does and like how you have been able to adjust to the current crisis. Now, it's very important for everybody to know that like the first couple of episodes, we took a lot of feedback, and this will be the first one that we are implementing in it. And we are very excited to really start with the Startup Empathy video series to really bring the founders a new idea of how other founders and investors are thinking of the current crisis. Having said that, Nikos, let's get started. And maybe you can elaborate a little bit more about like who you are and what Seervision is doing.
Cool. Yeah, nice to be here, Cédric. And I think it's quite fun what we're doing together. I'm excited that you are using this studio now. Maybe very quickly, the premise of Seervision is built on 2 things. One is automation, robotics, and artificial intelligence. This is the background of where I come from, and Reto from the founding team. And the third founder, Konrad, comes from video production. So basically the process of taking creators and capturing what they're doing and then making this available to the world. And since we started, that has been our vision, how to use the technology, use the stuff that we have been learning at the ETH essentially, and the automation that we learned to develop, and create tools that creators can use to tell their stories. And what you're experiencing now is basically our prototype studio, where we are testing some of our new things. So basically the cameras there can move by themselves. So if you're interested in doing some moving types of shots, then they will do it for you. And this is kind of the first step in creating tools that people can use, and they can basically tell their story without having to worry about the logistics of the content creation, basically.
So tell me a little bit about like Seervision. I mean, is a very, let's say, hardware and software-driven company where you definitely need like all the cameras set up, which is very hardware heavy, and then you have the software that is powering those cameras. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit about like the connection between these two and like how Seervision is solving a certain issue.
This is a very good question, and it has been a topic of discussion since the beginning. Hardware somehow is a necessary evil. When you talk about capturing video and creating a story from multiple cameras, then the cameras have to be there. And we, of course, don't make cameras. That's not our business. And actually, we don't even make robots. This is not what we focus on. We focus on the software that drives robots. And so you're right to say that we depend on hardware because we have to interact with it. But as a company, we focus on the software side. And really the core IP of the company is running in a green box, a green computer that you can see also in the studio. And that's where all the analytics happen of the image. And then we design the commands that make the robots move. And since the beginning, we have focused on making this compatible with every moving camera out there. So whether it's a flying system or whether it's a PTZ camera, we are aspiring to be able to drive all of them. We cannot do it yet, so we're doing it in steps. So we can work with robotics that people use in broadcast studios, and we can work with PTZ cameras that are currently really revolutionizing the market. They're actually everywhere.
Now let's talk a little bit about what happened in the last couple of months for Seervision, and like what were the impacts of the crisis that Seervision had to deal with in the couple of last weeks?
I don't know. I guess everybody knows by now that events where people get together have been cancelled at mass. So that means that if a company would be responsible for creating a video out of such an event, immediately these cases were lost. So the revenue was lost, and a lot of the people we are trying to serve with our tools and our technology have been suffering. So it's a little bit of a difficult situation because we are trying to still help them using tools remotely. For example, this is already a help that we provide, and you don't have to go anymore to a specific location. You can set up your stuff and you could operate them from a different location, and this helps. But the fact of the matter is that events have taken a big blow right now, and that has forced the whole industry to look into ways to do video production essentially as remotely as possible. And this has been how we operate in the team as well. So the whole team is working remotely. We are developing remotely because we see that for now, and I am actually quite sure some of these things are here to stay. The default way of doing all these kind of things will be remote. So we are living it ourselves by developing and by testing things remotely. We are putting ourselves into the position of our clients to make sure that we understand the problems that they will be facing as well.
I mean, like one of the big questions that like everybody's talking about right now is like how to preserve cash and extend the runway. What are the things that like you had to take in place to make sure that like your company is like more in like now survival mode versus growth?
Yeah, this is actually a very interesting topic. And I've read, it's funny because when you start reading on this stuff, you kind of hear or you read things that are contradicting each other. I've heard that companies that take the biggest and toughest decisions make it through crisis. I've also read that companies that invest in the thing that will make the difference once a crisis is over tend to win in a marketplace. So I think it really depends. And you have to look at your specific situation, your specific market, to be able to tell what's the right way to go. But definitely for us, since the beginning, the question was, okay, revenue is hard to generate if you're not a company that directly benefits from the lockdowns. Then you have to rethink a little bit your projections. So if you expect to have a certain income in the next in the next quarter, then the nice thing to do, and what we did was I guess the intelligent thing to do, is to assume that this is not going to happen, and then you push everything else accordingly. So you make an estimate of when things will go back to normal, and this is obviously shifting because nobody knows exactly. It depends a little bit on your specific industry, and then you work backwards and you extend your runway with any way you can. Sometimes you will work less. There are certain measures that help companies do that, and this is great that we live in Switzerland and this is a possibility. Sometimes you will not hire people you wanted to hire. Sometimes you may have to fire people, which is a very difficult thing, but maybe you have to do it. So you do everything you can to make sure that you are at the right spot when you think things are going to go back to where they were. And at the same time, you make sure that if there are opportunities, you are ready to take advantage of them. Because the worst thing you can do as a startup, as a deep tech startup like ours, is to go into hibernation, which basically you lose time. In the end, time is what you need.
Yes, absolutely. And like, how is it for you on the other side? Like, were you planning like a fundraising round, or are you in the middle of it, or almost at the end, or you haven't started? Like, what were your plans there?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation for us because we were actually planning on closing a round in Q4, and then as you know, when you set down your timeline in the good old days, summer is an important time where not many things happen. You discuss, but not many things happen. So you tend to go out before the summer, quite a bit before, so that you get your first discussions going on, so that maybe after the summer you can get some things on paper. And I think what the lockdown has done, the whole crisis actually, is to shift the notion of summer. I mean, what is summer? And can people actually go on holidays, or will things be different? So for us, the fundraising timeline for this year was clear, and we wanted to close the round in Q4 so that we would go out a bit before the summer and so on. what this changed is a bit these positions in these points in time where things have to be done. And then, of course, what you hear about the fundraising ecosystem at the moment, there are some things that are more difficult. And everybody says that, I mean, getting new investors in at this time, if you start now, is hard. So I can't tell you that I have enough data to support this, but there is not a single source I have seen that doesn't say that. The only thing I've seen is that a lot of investors are actually happy to invest in technology because, as I said, technology needs time. And what you get now is basically time. So if you are not going to reach the market in huge numbers during this lockdown, then it's fine. You still invest in technology, and investors might even get better deals during this time. So I think it's
sure.
Things are going to move forward.
What about your current investors? Like, did you get any advice from your current investors?
Yes, and this is maybe the most important thing, at least for me so far, was the ability to talk to them, and everybody is very open and interested in sharing their view, especially the ones that have been through the crisis of 2008 with active roles in managing companies. They have very, very good advice about what to do, and at the same time, I see that if the company has a plan of what to do and how to thrive after the crisis, investors are willing to help and make sure that you have what you need to get there. But they will not just help you because they have invested in the past. You know, there's the notion of sunk cost, and that's not the path that one should take. You should always look at what is the best possible scenario for you, and you try to make sure that this happens, and not figure out a way to just make it through, because that's not attractive for anybody.
Now, when you look at your team and like you had to adjust to the work from home idea, and everybody had to like organize themselves. Again, you're a very young team. Like, how was that adjustment for you? Was it of any significance, or that was seamlessly possible for you?
This is also extremely interesting for me. Probably it's one of the most interesting things that happened during this crisis. There is again a lot of information and data that supports that remote work is beneficial. And I always read that and thought, yeah, I can see it. And my problem always was, what if it's a hybrid thing where half the team is remote and half is not, and they interact with each other? And this I always found was problematic. Like, if you have one person sitting at home and then you have to have a meeting and then you have to set up a computer just to bring that person in the room. And imagine you're having some sort of design thinking session and you put posters on a wall and whatnot, and that person is just a screen. That doesn't work. And what I found during this lockdown is, because it was mandatory for everybody to be at home, this worked well. And we could do our design thinking sessions online. We could do them using very nice software that has been optimized for this. And because everybody was online, it worked. But if you were to ask me to do the same thing with half the team online and half the team in the office, I would say that doesn't work. Which then bears the very interesting question, what happens next? Because if remote works, has other benefits. So I see why companies try to do it. So then for us, the challenge is now, okay, there are things we like about remote. There are things we like about the office. How do we really make it work together? And yeah, that's something we're discussing literally this week with the team.
Let's talk a little bit about also like your interaction with clients. I mean, as far as I understood, your target audience or your target customer are corporates who want to install these type of setups into their offices. So maybe when you talk to clients, what is their sentiment at the moment? How are they feeling at the moment? What is your overall perception when you talk to your clients?
At the moment, what is obvious is that there's been a huge spike into the need for communicating through video. And then there is clearly a very large gap because on the one hand, you can hire a professional company, and this is what a lot of people do. And the professional companies do an excellent job in virtualizing and transforming your event. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have a nice web conferencing platform. There are several out there. The one we're using is also working fine. And you can still communicate. So the question always is, what do you do? Do you use something on your laptop and just get it done? Or do you hire a professional company to come in?
Yeah.
And what is in between? And what we figured is that a lot of companies are not happy with just using their laptop. There is a variety of reasons as to why. There is basically the story that you're telling if you are trying to reach an audience. and you have to maybe do a workshop, or maybe you have to sell a product, or maybe you have to present your company's results. I mean, there are several shareholders meetings coming up. And for these things, you cannot really do it the traditional way, right? You need to find a way to do it with a minimum amount of people, with less contact, with as much online as possible, but still maintaining some level of quality. And this is what people asked from us. Like, they saw what our system does. They understood that, okay, this could be a way for me to produce an event. How can I do it now with the least overhead? And that's what we've been doing. We've been packaging our solution, not anymore for professionals only, as a tool for professionals, which has been, as I said before, our focus for creators. But we also offer this as kind of a plug-and-play solution for corporations to do it themselves, so that they can cover this gap that today doesn't allow them to communicate online as much as they want to. And actually, you and everybody knows, video is really a very, very, very successful tool for communication, for marketing, for a variety of reasons. So everybody knew that, but now they're forced even more to use it.
Yes.
And this is great news for us. So even though events are being hit hard, at the same time, video communication online, automation, using tools that do things for you, the need for that has spiked quite a bit.
No, absolutely. I mean, again, I really believe in the tool of video, as you can imagine. I'm happy to see that the market, the cake of the market became much bigger, and the question is just how is it sliced up now? But definitely there's many more people now who are forced into using certain technologies that till now maybe they were resistant or stubborn, but now they are definitely forced to do that. Now let's look a little bit into the future. I mean, going forward, what is it kind of like that? You feel is your strategy? Are you more as far as from I understand, you're more the type of there's a sudden change and probably we're not going to go back to what we call normal. So what is kind of your strategy for the next couple of weeks and months?
There has been a notion of what is called remote production for quite some time. And there's a specific way of doing video production that has been presented a couple of years ago, actually. It's not even new, in different trade shows of the industry. And many companies have been in the process of kind of analyzing that, understanding whether it's good and how they can use it and so on. And obviously in the last few months, there has been an acceleration in this. So one thing that is changing is that if you can do things in this way, somehow remote, with less resources, you will do it. And that's what, at the moment, everybody is optimizing. So the technology is now making these steps that were, as you said before, very, very correctly, they were hesitant, people were being a bit slow because they didn't have to. Now the need, the urgency for this has moved technology fast. So for us right now, the challenge is just to keep up, because the clients suddenly are extremely ready for something that in another time, like a few months back, I would have to pitch that, it's always difficult to issue these changes and processes work a certain way and it takes time. And now I have to say, well, things are moving so fast and the clients are so ready that for us, the challenge is to react as fast, make the right decisions, because there are so many opportunities you can easily make a step in the wrong direction. So we will make steps in the wrong direction, but then we have to realize, come back and move forward again. So this is what we are focusing on. That's why I talked also about design thinking sprints and stuff like that, because we are trying to make sure we make the right moves and keep up with the fact that our clients, the industry, has suddenly exploded in needing parts of what our technology and our solution offers. So this is a challenge right now.
A lot of times I also asked about the support that is necessary now for startups. So one of the sides is definitely financial support, there's bridge loans and stuff like this that you can get from the government. But if for you personally, as the CEO and co-founder of Seervision, what is kind of a support that the ecosystem maybe can offer you at this stage?
Definitely talking to people that are going through the same problems, this helps. It helps putting things into perspective, because everybody feels that their situation is somehow special, but it's not. Everybody in this case has the same problems. I have found it very, very useful, as I said before, talking to people that have gone through a crisis before. Not just reading, but talking to them and sharing your case with them. Because even though the nature of the problems is the same, as I said before, the logistics of how to solve them are going to be slightly different. And in the ecosystem, you can find people that can help you do that. This is something that I'm missing a little bit. There's a variety of webinars that are really excellent because you get a lot of information. I'm missing a little bit the digging deep into the specific problems of every startup during this crisis, and then getting some hands-on advice by experts on how to navigate those problems, like some sort of fast consulting of some sort, where you could really look at this in detail and execute on it, and maybe spend a couple of days with people that would be offered to startups by the ecosystem. And I don't know, maybe they could even be paid by the government. I can't think of how exactly you would execute this. I mean, InnoSwiss has some such programs, but at the end of the day, you need to get people that are experts in navigating crisis situations, and you need to put them on the startups to advise them in what to do for their specific issues that they have. And that's something that, for example, I have not seen anybody offer at scale so far.
What is your number one learning from this crisis?
What I learned is that when these things happen and they are uncertain and you're trying to make the right decision, and it's often difficult to do that, you rely on people that are flexible. You need to rely on flexibility. These are the best people to work with during crisis, flexible people.
If you had to associate this crisis with one word of feelings, which feeling would you associate this crisis with?
I would say roller coaster. Like, I was joking with some friends of mine that, especially during the peak of what was going on, we were jumping from everything's going to be fine, there's no problem, to, oh my God, that's the end of the world. So it's been a roller coaster, and this happened both, when you look at your personal life, but also when you look at your business. I think there is a little bit of that.
So you have the roller coaster of a startup, and then within the roller coaster you have the roller coaster of the crisis. Very cool. I like that one. What do you think will change forever?
I think the notion of time. I think we've been living in a very fast-paced society, and just experiencing life with a little bit of more time, because obviously less things happen, less moving around and all that. I think people are going to look for that time afterwards proactively. Now,
I'm sure you also all the time see other business ideas and opportunities that we could pursue. But when you look outside of Seervision and connected now to this crisis, what would be the one opportunity you would wish to have time now to actually work on?
I really like the last mile problem. And that's something that I've been interested in privately, on how you get things to the end point, not when they come to a city, but how do you, and this, for example, includes deliveries and so on. And I think this is a very interesting problem to look at. But honestly, what I would do from now on is just always think, what if something like this happens again? Have it in my mind for every decision we make in the business. And in other things that are happening around me, I will think, how will this work if a pandemic comes along? Because what we know is that these things will happen again. And so the world has to be ready. And that's the mindset I would have as an entrepreneur to deal with this. Always think, how will this work when a pandemic will come along? And then find solutions to address that.
What do you think is your one tip for working from home?
Well, what I found the best in working from home is making use of this time that you bought, but making efficient use of that extra time. Don't sneak in another meeting there, but maybe use it to walk around and think a bit more. Use it efficiently, the time that you bought, by not having to move around and between meetings and so on. Use it effectively to think.
Okay, very good. Nikos, thank you so much, and I'm really excited about the next 6 episodes that we recorded here at Seervision Pop-Up Studio. And thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to use the studio. And I wish you a lot of health and success. And thank you very much for joining us today.
Same to you, Cédric, and everybody else. Stay healthy, and may this be the last time we have to face this in our generation.